Welcome to the Paramedic AF Show with your hosts, Dan and Michelle. We hope you've come prepared to be challenged, offended, and encouraged. We are here to create a better future for the entire EMS industry. We have changed or omitted names of individuals in order to protect the innocent, the guilty, and the incompetent. We believe that knowledge fuels power, ignorance is not bliss, and nothing will change until we abandon the status quo. This is our design. Welcome to the show. And welcome to the Paramedic AF Show. I'm Daniel, and I'm by myself today. Unfortunately, we weren't able to make it work where Michelle and I could record together. So today we're going to do something a little bit different once again. I'm going to do a solo episode with y'all and kind of dig into, I guess, a little more the personal side of our project. We've talked a lot about, change in EMS and what we want to accomplish, but I know as our following is growing, there's a lot of you out there who are listening who don't know about us personally and our personal history and kind of what the bigger picture is going on. There's a lot of different podcasts out there. There's a lot of different EMS pages out there. There's a lot of people saying a lot of things. So you're probably wondering, what makes EMS 2.0 and Paramedic AF different? What's the point? And, what's to stop us from just being one more voice that doesn't really actually do anything? And unfortunately, that's kind of a reality that we live with, that there's always the chance that we can put all this content out there, we can say all these things, we can try all these things, and it could end up falling flat on its face. And I obviously don't want that, and we're working very hard to keep that from happening. But unfortunately, that's just the reality of the world we live in and the project that we're trying to do. So I wanted to get a little more personal with you guys today. Not just in talking about my career, but, how the past decade has created where I am now, where we are collectively and what we're wanting to accomplish with EMS. We talked about it a little bit in the intro episode, but when I first started into this, I was this starry, doe-eyed little, let's go save the world and make a difference. I was fresh out of, I spent some time at a Bible college here in town. I didn't cuss when I first started working in EMS. That was very weird for me. I grew up in a very, very ultra-conservative Christian family. I was homeschooled, for those of you who would never have guessed by the way I talk. I was homeschooled. I transferred down here. How I ended up in South Carolina was I transferred down here to Bob Jones University. And no, I do not represent them in any way, shape, or form, and I'm not going to really talk about them. But to give you some context of who I am and where I came from coming into the EMS world. So I started out as a driver. I've made it a point not to look down my nose at anybody in this job because I've done all of it. I've been the non-certified driver. I didn't even have my CPR. I had nothing. I literally just showed up and was like, hey, you're driving. Cool. I'd never, the idea of just, moving patients. How do you lift someone and grab someone, touching other people that aren't your kids or family or whatever. That was really strange for me. And no one in my family had done anything medical. All of my family was engineers and computer scientists and, white collar workers, making significantly more money than I do. So there was a massive learning curve here, and I made a lot of mistakes. I had to learn the hard way, not just because it was new, but because I'm also very stubborn. So I have to learn the hard way. But I wanted to do this. I was in my early 20s, and my original plans for life had kind of gone to shit. And when I moved down here, so after I was done with my stint at school, the family I lived with, the oldest son was a paramedic for a local agency. And he wasn't living at the house, but I did some ride times with him, and I got hooked. And his little brother, who still lived at the house that I was renting in, he was an explorer for that local agency as well. So even though I'd been introduced to EMS before through some friends back home, this was kind of okay, hey, I can actually consider doing this. Like, this might actually be a viable career option for me. So I did the ride times. I got interested. I had to go pay for EMT school. Did that, and got my EMT, and it's like, okay, this is great, and started working. And it got to the point where, I knew I wanted to go to paramedic school, but I did some time working just as an EMT, and I got to the point where I was really frustrated because I was like, hey, I want to do more. I want to be able to do all these things. And some of that frustration was dealing with partners who weren't treating patients properly, but also working with partners who did do their job very well. And I really, really, really wanted that. I wanted that responsibility. I wanted to be able to do all those things, not because it was cool. Yes, it was exciting. There's parts of this job that are still really cool. Like, even if it's just one-off things every once in a while that are really fascinating. Or like, my favorite skill pre-hospital that I've ever gotten to do thus far is blood administration. Just being a part of that process in the field. I was a part of one of the first programs that piloted it in South Carolina. And it was an amazing experience. I never would have thought that I'd have seen that, in my career, that we were doing that on the ground. So I just had this assumption that this is what I was going to do with my life. I was going to be on the truck until I retired. That's just what I wanted to do. I was energized. I was excited. I didn't really have any upward aspiration. Growing up, my father had always, he had never gone into management because his philosophy always was, well, I like actually doing my job. I don't want my job to become making other people do that job. I want to do that job. So I was always scared of even thinking of doing management. So I was like, you know what? I'm just going to work in the field, do what I can there, and that's it. I'm just going to ride that until I retire, collect state retirement check and be good to go. Well, that was great for a while. And I was working, I went through paramedic school. That was rough. My first marriage ended right after, and that's a long personal story we don't need to get into. Unfortunately, most of us in this field understand what it's like to be divorced. It's kind of a joke that you have a sacrificial marriage for the career, but I don't think that's fair or right in this situation for me personally. And so anyway, it was a lot of upheaval and change, and I really wasn't focusing on my career at that point in my life. I was like, all right, I'm a paramedic, boom, cool. I'm just going to enjoy my life from here. And so I was working at a very busy 911 service at the time, working night shift, which I loved at the time. I don't anymore. And I was starting to wear down a little bit. And, I was used to, people treating us like shit, and family members accusing us of things, or, saying that we don't care, whatever. I was used to that, and no skin off my back. But there was one night, and I don't remember, I know this was towards the end of 2019, so I'd already been a paramedic for 3.5 years at this point. Been in EMS at that point for, do the math, about 7 years. So I go out to a psychiatric call, we've all been on them, and, the general gist of it was the patient's family member was saying that, this and this and this happened. The patient said, no, I'm fine. I'm in my right mind. I don't want to go to the hospital. The patient was alert and oriented, met all the criteria to refuse. And I explained that to the family, that we had no choice. He was alert and oriented, and, there was no evidence of what she had been claiming he was doing. And so we had no choice but to refuse, to allow him to refuse. That's his right. That's part of being a patient advocate too, I believe, is regardless of your opinion of whether or not a patient should go to the hospital. If they do not want to seek medical care or further medical care, if they are mentally competent, they have the right to refuse. And I need to advocate for their right to refuse if that is truly what they wish, not what I talked them into. So this individual did not want to be transported. Well, the family member proceeded to berate me and, saying that I couldn't even tell you all the things, but basically like that I had no compassion, I wasn't a quality provider, and that if anything bad happened to the patient, it was on all of that was on my head. And I took it, I wasn't gonna, start a fight with this person. That's not right or fair or professional. I took it, but that night I really just had a realization of I don't want to do 911 anymore. I'm tired of this. I don't get paid enough to be treated like this by anybody. So I started making an exit plan, and it was a weird thing because it wasn't like anything new had happened. It was a kind of call I've run, 100 times before, but there's just something in that moment that just clicked in me and said, this isn't right. So I started weighing out my options for employment, and unfortunately, in the state of South Carolina, if you want to stay in the state retirement system, there's some limits on what you can do and not do. And so I had to have a very serious conversation with myself of, do I want to stay in the retirement system? And I decided that no, this isn't worth it. I need to get out. I need to do something else. And so I went through the process, was employed, and I'm summarizing a lot of details and glossing over, a lot of rabbit trails we could go on. But the long and short of it is, right before COVID hit, I transitioned to doing exclusively interfacility work. Was not doing any full-time 911 at all, or part-time. And it was a good change. I needed the break because I felt like, okay, no, I'm not in high acuity situations right now, but the patients that I'm dealing with, they actually need help. They may not be dying right now, but they need help. They need someone to continue their care. It was basically, instead of being on the front end of the continuum of care, I was now midstream. I wasn't doing dialysis runs. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but I felt like I was doing stuff that mattered a little bit more to me. It made me feel a little more satisfied, and most of my patients actually were much more appreciative than 911 patients, which is kind of weird when you think about it. So that was fine for a while, and I thought, oh, I'll do critical care, eventually work my way to doing some kind of fixed wing flight, because for those of you who don't know me, I would not do well in a helicopter. I am just under 6'3" and a muscular 280 pounds. I don't need to be on a helicopter. So that's kind of what I was thinking I would do. And I realized, after assisting with a number of critical care calls, I was really not cut out for it. I didn't find critical care to be innately satisfying. There's some cool stuff that critical care gets to do. It's a lot of hard work. There's a much heavier knowledge base that they need to have. So I'm not shitting on critical care in any way, shape, or form. I have massive respect for anyone who wants to do it. It just wasn't for me. So at that point, I decided to transition more to doing more, looking back to doing more 911. And so I made the appropriate, transitions in my career to do that. And I still kept a foot in interfacility. I didn't get out of it. And as a side note, I firmly believe that both interfacility and 911 are extremely important. I don't believe one is better than the other. I think that they serve different roles with where you are in your career. I think that as a brand new medic, you should do time as a brand new basic, definitely, and as a brand new medic. Well, let me walk that back. As an EMT, start with convalescent. Do the basic stuff. Get good at vitals. Get good at moving patients. Get good at getting in and out of houses. Doing all that stuff in low-stress environments. Then transition to 911 and earn your stripes there. And then transition to, looking at medic school and all of that. And once you're a brand new medic, I would say it's crucial that you spend several years doing 911, and because the learning curve there is so huge, and it was massive for me, because we've already talked about this before in previous episodes, people treat you differently, and that's not right, but it is what it is. You're under so much more scrutiny as a brand new medic, and you really need to take that time to earn your stripes. But there's nothing wrong with doing in a facility as well, because it strengthens your knowledge base. I learned a lot more about pathophys and about kind of the behind the scenes and ongoing care of patients, and that has positively affected my care in the pre-hospital front end of the continuum of care. So anyway, I've made these jumps and all these changes, and settled into a routine. And I felt like my job transitions have always been good and healthy and moving forward. But I was still just unsatisfied. Like I didn't feel the same gusto for the job. And it wasn't that I was being mistreated or didn't work at a quality place, but I just felt like something was missing. And I didn't really know what it was. So this is kind of like end of 2020, when we thought the world was falling apart. I was just not doing well. Like, my mental health was in an awful, awful state. I'd been through some pretty heavy shit that year. And in the years prior, I'm not going to divulge all of my, dirty laundry and personal events to everyone, but it had been a rough couple of years. There'd been a lot of stuff going on. And so early 2021 is when I kind of came to the realization that I needed to change some things up. I was not going to be able to sustain a full-time career in EMS. Not physically. I mean, physically I'm in better shape now than I've been at any time in my life. But I couldn't even explain it to you why. I just felt like there was so much more. So I started on this really weird self-improvement journey, which, I mean, had technically started a couple of years earlier, but this was the beginning of 2021 was a pretty significant point in my life for overhauling not just my personal life, my identity. I'd already done a lot of work for that, but also, like, what am I doing? What is my legacy going to be in this world? Because at this point I had none. I'd seen all these people who retired from a career in EMS, and it was like, yay, bye, and their names are forgotten. And I don't mean this in a cocky way or any kind of, not in a narcissistic way. I wanted more. I wanted to, not that I wanted people to be singing my praises in the streets, but I wanted to leave a more durable legacy. So I started, and maybe some of you are going to chuckle because you hear me preach podcasts so much, but I started listening to podcasts. I started listening to the one by Jordan Belfort, who some of you may recognize the name from the movie The Wolf of Wall Street. And he was someone who, was convicted of one of the biggest fraud cases on Wall Street in history, and went to prison, did all this stuff, did time, and has since made a huge comeback. And I resonated with that story because, I've not been a saint in my life. And his story really resonated with me, saying, hey, like, I can bounce back from this. I can do better. There's a lot more ahead for me in my life, but I have got to change some things. And he introduced me to something that was revolutionary for me. It was the concept of self-limiting beliefs. And even though I'd studied psychology in college, I never really was familiar with this. And I started digging into this concept. And this is where a huge shift started happening, because I started realizing what the ways were that I was self-sabotaging myself. I was getting in my own way and was engaging in this horrifically toxic self-talk that was translating to a horrible mental state that translated to bad, unhealthy decisions, unfulfilling relationships, all of these different things. So as I started on this, personal journey, I started to think to take those principles and apply them to my career. And I got introduced to another interesting topic, and that is that in the workforce, there are three different kinds of people. You have people who are craftsmen. They're very good at one job. They do it. They love it. That's all they eat, sleep, breathe. They do it. They go home. They collect a paycheck, and that's it. That's all they do. That's all they want to do for the rest of their lives. And those kinds of people are good and healthy. But that was all I'd ever been taught to be. Not maliciously, just that was, that was a lot of the mentality that my father had, that my grandfather had. And that was just the example that I thought was the way to go. I thought that was the most noble thing. But I realized that's not for everyone. Not for everyone. So you've got, some people are craftsmen, some people are mountain climbers. They have to be continually improving, ascending, doing bigger, better things, moving up, and that's just their life. It's not that they have an end goal. They just want to keep moving up. They want to keep that progression up and up and up and up and up and up until there's nothing left for them to conquer. And then you have the people who are freedom fighters, that they want to work, work, work until they have complete independence to be able to have what has been described as fuck you money. To then be able to say, fuck you, I'm going to do whatever I want, go live and travel, whatever I want. That's it. I don't care about fame. I don't care about leaving a legacy. I just want to go do me. And so I started to think about that and realize, okay, I've been trying to force my life into this craftsman mentality when really I would lean more towards now, especially looking back, I'm more predisposed to being a mountain climber. Well, that's great. That's a wonderful revelation. But when you're, almost 10 years deep into a career, that's a lot to shift. That's not just I'm just going to go change jobs and go to school and then go do this and boom, I'm on my way. I was very deeply set into what I was doing. So it's kind of like the analogy of, when if you're on a ship and you have to make a 180-degree turn, if you're on a little, scud boat, you're just going to turn around and you're done. If you're an aircraft carrier, it's going to take you a day to spin around. Well, I felt like an aircraft carrier. I had all this baggage, weight, and experience and all the stuff that is like, okay, I have to shift this. And there was a lot of trial and error in that process of figuring out what I was good at, what I wasn't good at, trying small business ideas, trying things, movements, stuff that I was passionate about. And I started to see so many parallels in the process of self-improvement, business improvement, and got to the point where I realized, wait a minute, this process that I'm going through right now, this like soul reckoning that I'm going through right now is exactly what EMS as a community needs. Now, that sounds very noble and sappy and whatnot, but that's not a simple task. There's so many things at play here to make this happen. And what started as a journey for me of just getting away from EMS, unfortunately, because I was burned out, I was frustrated, I felt unfulfilled. I was like, I can't do this. I need to go do something. But as I started to get that little bit of vision of where I could go and what I could do, I realized, wait a minute, I can take that and turn it back onto EMS in a good way. But I can't do that, just from a street level. I need to get out ahead of this. And so that turned into this whole evolution of what has become the EMS 2.0 project. I have several ventures that I'm building simultaneously right now that all interact with EMS directly. They're separate business things, but they ultimately feed the same vision of we need to improve the systems and processes in place in EMS, the equipment and the technology and all of these things. We need custom created things for us, but none of that is going to do any good if we lose the heart and soul of this community. So instead of I mean, yes, the companies that I'm in the process of building right now, I care very much about and are going to be, the obsession of my life for the next 10, 15, 20 years. But EMS 2.0 is the soul of that project. What we're doing here with the podcast and the Facebook page is just scratching the surface of what we want to see happen in the EMS community. And no, it's not that we're not, Michelle and I are not relationship coaches. We are not trying to turn this into a group therapy session per se. What we're trying to show is there is a better way. There are things that the rest of the world has figured out that EMS is still very behind on, whether it's, general leadership practices, whether it's, how we handle conflict resolution, how we motivate people, how we treat our team members, how we deal with new people, all of these things. There's so much the rest of the world has figured out and has created healthy ways and systems to do it. Now, obviously, every place has its problems, not just in EMS. Every business anywhere ever has its problems. So, no, we're not like, oh, everything else outside of EMS is this, perfect panacea and paradise. No, like, everybody has a dark underbelly. But in the same way that so many of us have this untapped, deep potential, I believe that the EMS community as a whole has massive potential that we're just not making use of. Instead we glorify negative coping mechanisms. We glorify awful practices, when it comes to sleep and overtime and food and everything. Caffeine consumption, I mean, I can't I can't bitch too much about that because I consume anywhere from 3 to 450 milligrams of caffeine a day, which for some people isn't much, for some is a lot. But anyway, that's beside the point. We normalize those things. We normalize so many things that are absolutely toxic to us, absolutely destroying us and breaking our spirits. Because, you can't, just like with your own body, you can't feed your body shit and expect your mind to be okay. And vice versa. You can't feed your mind shit and expect your body to be okay. And I think culturally in EMS, we're very sick. We're making a lot of progress in EMS. I'm not shitting on EMS in that sense. Like, we've done so much with technology and protocols and response times. All the technology and all that stuff is great. It's awesome. But we are dying inside as a community, and I hate it. I hate it, and it makes me. It really is sad. Like, because I came in, like I said, I came into this and I fell in love with EMS, and even now I can honestly say, I mean, this is when you look at all the good of this job, it's pretty damn cool. You think about the things that you get to see, and I know we're very morbid and we, have no problem joking about death and whatnot, but there's really a lot of really cool things that we get to see out here. Stuff that most people will only dream of or see like a very poor representation of in a movie. We get to live it all the time. And that's fucking wonderful. But there's so much that we need to change. I wish that I could say that I can just sit up here and preach a sermon about how to fix EMS culture and everybody goes in their merry way and fixes it, but that's just not what's happening. That's not going to happen. We all need to first become aware. We need to have some self-awareness of what's going on in EMS. And then each of us needs to want to change it. We need to want to change it because, I mean, I'm sure each of you would love to be able to come into work every day. All right, well, that's not going to happen until we all start pushing, start trying, and make that change. And that change needs to come from within. That can't be imposed on you, just like you can't legislate morality. You can't make people want to change, You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink. I feel like we have just lost our way and need some kind of path to restore not just what we were, because everybody talks about the glory days of EMS. I don't give a shit about the glory days. That's great that it happened. I'm glad it was wonderful. We live in a different world now. We need to create something bigger and better for the future, because right now all we focus on is how bad it is, how awful it is, how horrible things are. So where does that change come from? Even within yourself, how does an individual affect that kind of change? Well, you first of all have to change what you think. What you think about yourself, what you think about your profession, about your environment. You have to, and when you do that, you change how you feel. Because ultimately what you're feeling is a product of what you're thinking. It's not a what's the right word I'm trying to say? It's not a chance thing. It's not an out of control thing. Feeling is a product of thought, ultimately. Or at least it is a product of the conditioning from thought. So you have to change what you think. And when you do that, you start to change how you feel. And when you've done the changing of what you think, what you feel, you'll change what you do. Because your actions are a product of your thoughts and feelings. And when you can let your thoughts be at the head of the ship, well, they are, period. Your thoughts dictate everything. But when you take control of those thoughts, then you can take control of your emotional well-being, your physical well-being, your career, all of it. And I'm not saying this is let me just flip the light switch. This takes time. It has taken me years to understand this process and actually live it out. This is not a simple thing that I'm saying or that I'm asking of anyone. This is heavy shit. And if you want to change your life, you have to live it differently. The same thing in EMS. If we want to change the way things are, we have to think, feel, and function differently than what we have been. And no, I'm not saying you need to be all hyper serious and never joke and poke at each other and whatnot. No, not at all. But you need to do things differently. There needs to be a shift in what we're doing, who we're spending our time with, what kind of thoughts you're filling your mind with. Your mind is an engine. What kind of fuel you put in it is what you're going to get out of it. So I feel like what we're the simplest version of what needs to happen with EMS is we need to set a vision, period. We really do. We need to create core values. Michelle and I have promoted our core values for EMS 2.0 project as kind of a foundation. We say, hey, like these principles of, personal wellness, authentic leadership, rigorous accountability, all of that applies to the entire EMS community. When we can all get on board with that and start wrapping our brains around that, I think that's when we're going to actually start to see some real change, when we dig into what it means to have authentic leadership. That's something we're desperately lacking on the whole in the EMS community. And I'm not just talking, again, about people who are in positions of authority. I'm talking about everyone. We all need to improve when it comes to developing authentic leadership. We all need to improve on clinical discipline. We all need to improve on our rigorous accountability. We all need to improve on personal wellness. All of it. There's no it's not like there's an end state where we're like, okay, cool, we don't have to work anymore. No, we have to continually work at this until we die. Anyone who's done, basic high school science understands the second law of thermodynamics. Basically that everything is in a state of deterioration. There's no neutrality in the universe. You're either improving actively, purposefully, or you're devolving. You're never truly staying neutral. You may think you are, and we do that by normalizing where we are and normalizing a lot of the toxic bullshit. But in reality, we are deteriorating. In the same way that each of us actively needs to take responsibility for our personal growth, we all need to take active responsibility every day for making the EMS community what it really can be. That falls on us. Every single person who wears a patch, who has the cards, who shows up for work today on an ambulance, on a QRV, on a fire engine, whatever. Because this is, I say EMS because we separate fire and EMS here, but the first responder community in general, this is all true. If you put on those patches, you put on that uniform, it is your responsibility to make this better. You cannot escape it. You can deny it, and that's fine, but you're still responsible. And if you don't want that responsibility, then you should probably go find another job, because there's no room for that mentality here anymore. I'm not trying to be rude or mean, but we have to be honest that there's no room for this. So if your mentality is, well, I don't give a shit, about EMS, I'm just going to collect a paycheck and that's it, fuck it all, leave. Leave. Turn in your patches, leave. Because if that's your attitude about this, then I will guarantee that your attitude about patient care is not great either. And you're probably someone who's going to tear down the new hires and the new certs and all of that. No, we don't need that. You can go. And I think it's time we have those honest conversations, and especially in a time in EMS, fire and EMS, where people need bodies. They need people to fix staffing problems. Sorry, if you're not on board with this, with getting it better, you need to go. And that applies to administrators as well as to EMTs. If you don't want to make it better, get out. This is something I can't unsee what's happening in EMS. As I've been taking steps to better my life, and I have so far to go in so many things. Y'all, I have no delusions about being perfect or putting myself on a pedestal or anything. I just don't. But as I've been learning this process and coming to grips with myself and creating that self-awareness, all the good, the bad, and the ugly of it, and realizing that there's a better way to be, a better way to live, a better way to think, I can't unsee that. And I can't unsee the fact that EMS is struggling because of it, because we don't have that kind of vision. And that's what we want to communicate here. Is it's not that we're, God's gift to EMS. We're not, the fucking experts on shit. We're out here saying there's a better way to live. There's a better way to function as an industry and as a community and as a culture. All of it. There is a fucking better way. And it just breaks my heart to see that we're just letting it slip by. Like I said, the protocols are getting better. The trucks are nicer. Pay is slightly better. I mean, slightly. But inside, we're rotting away. And I've heard the same old song and dance about how, once you get sucked into this profession, you're stuck, and your only option out is nursing school. I'm sorry, I refuse to accept that. I think that there are plenty of ways available for people that want to either move up in this field or take their experience and translate it to something else, find something that's satisfying for them, whatever it may be, and we need to support that. Sure, I'm trying to take my experience to the business world. I want to work for myself. I'm tired of not being able to have a normal home life. I'm tired of being tired. I'm tired of all of us having to beat ourselves to death to just make ends meet, working these obscene schedules, destroying our bodies and our minds, and it's just not sustainable anymore. And I want to see EMS, the entire community, fire, EMS, public service as a whole, I want to see it start moving the other way. I want to see that needle start shifting. I know that there's changes that will take longer than I have life left in me, and that's okay. I just want to see that needle move. There's this, I don't even know what it is. There's this darkness that's just got a stranglehold on this entire community, and I want to fucking kill that darkness. I want to break the back of anything that is holding us down, because I'm tired of it. I'm tired of watching it. I'm tired of hearing about it. I'm tired of seeing it destroy us, because this is not right. We're supposed to be out here taking care of people and saving lives, but we're fucking killing ourselves in the process. I want to bring some light to this community, and with that comes bearing witness to the dark truth that we will fall together if we don't do something. We have to want to change. We have to own the change. We have to take ownership of that and say, hey, this is my responsibility. Even if I don't see the effects of it today, tomorrow, a month from now, a year from now, I need to take responsibility for it now. And we need to be consistent in order for that change to actually be able to latch on and take hold. It's like going to the gym. If you go for, a week, a month, 2 months, cool. You might see a little bit of progress, but you're probably not going to see a whole lot. But that's not the point. The point is you have to be consistent over a long period of time. It's showing up to the gym several times a week for 3 years that's going to give you those massive results. And we need to have that same vision in EMS. We need to look beyond, next pay period. We need to look beyond next year. We need to look in terms of decades. What are the decisions that we're making now? What impact are they having on us in the future? So we need that vision of where we want to be, not just trying to survive where we are right now. And God, I know that's fucking hard. I get it. Like, we're struggling so hard, and the American health system in general is struggling so hard, and I'm sure it is in other countries too. I'm very grateful that we have people who are listening in other countries. That's been incredible. And I would love to hear from you guys what your struggles are, because I'm very certain that we're not alone. But I'm just tired of watching it suffocate. So we need to have a vision for what we're going to be and what we can become. And whether that's a vision for your individual agency, or whether I would love for us to have a unified vision as an industry, to have healthy, effective teams providing excellent care and taking care of their fellow providers. I would love to see that. We need core values. We need to have some standard of expectation for what it means to be in this field, for what it means to be an EMT, paramedic, all of it. We need to create that expectation and hold ourselves to it. And the people that aren't able to meet that expectation need to either get on board with it or go away. Because we can't be sitting on the fence. We can't have that. We can't have people that are going to try and keep tearing us down. I'm begging all of you who are listening, please take this to heart. Like, this show, we are very sarcastic and sometimes satirical, and we say a lot. We try and give you as much value as we can. But by God, we need some change around here. Not just here locally where I am, but in our entire industry, we need the change. We need all of you for that change to happen. We're kind of like the Titanic. At least it feels that way. We're just sitting there listening to the band play. Like, we know shit's going down. Sorry, my phone went off there. We know shit's going down, but we're just sitting there listening to the music like nothing's wrong. If we don't do something, we're all going to die. Not literally. I mean, we'll eventually die anyway, but you get what I'm saying. This industry will die. Please just take some time to think about what I've said here, what we've said, in all the other episodes. To think about the big picture. I know you're tired. I know you're stressed. We all are. We're all scraping by. I can't tell you the last time I had a full night's sleep. We all want to see our families more. At least I hope you do. I really hope you do. I hope you're well. I hope that everybody's able to see there's a better way for us to be, both as individuals. And if that's all that happens from this, is that you're able to start the process of changing your own personal life, your family life, fucking awesome. Hell yeah. Fucking do it. But we need, our community needs this. It really does. And I hope that we're able to communicate to you the gravity of that. That we're in a tough spot. We're in a very, very tough spot as an industry. So that's why we ask that you spread the word. You share this with your friends. You get those conversations going. We want you to be encouraged. We want you to be offended. Because if you're not offended, then you're never going to challenge what you think and feel. If you're not offended, you're not gonna have motivation to change anything. So be encouraged, be offended. That's good. That's healthy. We need y'all. Can't do it without you. And just keep spreading the word, and we'll talk to you next time. Bye-bye.
The Paramedic AF show is property of the EMS 2.0 project. The beliefs, opinions, and practices discussed in the show are our own and do not represent our respective employers. Please Please follow your local protocols, policies, and procedures at all times. All listeners are encouraged to research and self-educate regarding all content represented in this show. For more information regarding EMS 2.0, please visit our Facebook page for our website and social media links. Thank you for your continued support, and we look forward to you joining us next time.